Welcome to Fitz Dog Radio. That Thanksgiving is upon us, and relatives are probably upon you. I have a mother staying in my home, and there is no service for that. There's no van that will show up at your house and remove a family member. You have to just wait it out. No, I love my mother. I do. She's wonderful. But anytime a family member stays with you, it's strange. It's very strange. But that's the holidays. Big podcast today. Jonathan Katz, who's one of my idols coming up in Boston. He's a guy I really looked up to a lot. Still do. One of the great writers. Jonathan Katz did Dr. Katz Professional Therapist on Comedy Central. I'm sure you remember the animated show. And he did it with a guy named Tom Snyder, who was on the podcast as well. Tom was the animator for Dr. Katz. He is has a huge animation company. He's one of the real kind of pioneers of this new kind of low-tech animation that you see now. You know, everything from South Park to pretty much all animation came from this squiggle vision style that he came up with on a computer back in the early 90s. So they'll be on the show talking about their new show, Explosion Bus, which is actually a sponsor of the podcast for about a month. So we'll be talking about that. It's a great series on the intranet, and that's it. The podcast, by the way, thank you, people. I put it out there for people to spread the word and get the podcast out to a few more listeners, and you have responded. Where our numbers are way up, and I want to keep growing it. Holidays are coming. Tell your friends and family. Check out Fitz Dog Radio. If they don't like it, they won't listen again. But we're booking some A-list guests. We just had Adam Carolla on. We've got a lot of big names coming up in the next few weeks. So put it out there, people, for the holidays. And also for the holidays, go to Amazon.com through FitzDog.com. Throw a little love our way. Help pay the bills here on the podcast. Just go to the FitzDog.com page, click on the Amazon banner, and they share a little of the revenue with us. And again, that's been picking up, so thank you for that. And then the Sirius show, I do the show on Sirius XM on Howard Stern's Channel 101. They have bumped us up to an earlier time slot. I mean, look, we're on fire going into 2013, and it's because of you guys. So thank you. I don't thank you guys that often, and I'm doing it. So don't get all choked up, but take it in. Anyway, I want to get right into this interview because Jonathan is a guy, again, when you were coming up in Boston, there was a lot of different types of comedy. There was hardcore, in-your-face, belly laugh comedy from guys like Don Gavin and Steve Sweeney and Kenny Rogerson. And then there was this other more I don't want to say more intelligent, but much more esoteric, much more written than performance-style comedy. And Jonathan Katz, I'd put at the dead center of that as a guy who really, you learned how to write good jokes watching him, and also a lot of different performance techniques. And then Dr. Katz was just this amazing animated show. And at the time, I wasn't that far into comedy, maybe 4 years or so, and I'd opened for Jonathan a few times, and so he asked me if I wanted to be on Dr. Katz Professional Therapist, and I was just over the moon. I mean, this was not only my first TV credit, but a very cool TV show to be on. And so I went in, and maybe I was nervous or whatever, but I must not have done very well because they never ended up animating it and making it an episode, which sucked. I was so disappointed. And so he's here today, and we're gonna ask him a little bit about it. Ask him about my failure. Maybe it's his failure. Maybe he just couldn't figure it. It was too much. It was too much comedy for him to handle. Couldn't capture it in this little stupid cartoon. So let's get into it. Here we are, our conversation with the great Jonathan Katz and his sidekick, Tom Snyder. Welcome to Fitz Dog Radio. It's an honor tonight to have my guests in. I can't say that very often. I had Dave Attell in last week. That was embarrassing. I had Adam Carolla on recently.
Disgraceful.
disgraceful, and you can't get a word in, and I feel like I got a shot here, even though there's two of you guys. You're both kind of nerdy, and one of you pulled up in a, what do you call that thing you drive?
A mobility scooter?
It's a mobility scooter.
Or a Segway also sounds better.
It does, actually. Yeah. It's like a Segway. Yeah. Jonathan Katz, who you know from Dr. Katz, professional therapist, as well as dozens of late-night talk show appearances and HBO specials and parts in movies like, weren't you in like Daddy Daycare? A lot of smaller parts in some smaller movies.
Right, and a lot of David Mamet movies.
And I'm sorry, and Tom Snyder, of course, who's here as well, who is not the Tom Snyder, but, and I don't want to say a Tom Snyder because you're a significant Tom Snyder.
Well, I'm alive.
I think
Did he die?
Yeah.
Oh, who wins that one?
He died and left him boss.
He did.
That's so great. Would that be great if he died and they called you and were like, come on, the taping's at 5:30, and they literally put you into that show just because of your name?
Yeah. Well, they sued me just because of my name, in fact, but that's another story.
They did?
He. Yeah.
What's that on?
That was the worst sentence of all time. He.
Period. He.
He did. You really tried to pronoun your way out of that one. So what happened exactly? Now, Tom Snyder, if people aren't aware, is one of the great broadcasters of all time. He was a news guy who also was a radio guy, and then Letterman. In I guess the third act of his life, Letterman gave him that sweet spot after him, and then apparently he passed away.
And the fourth act was Dan Aykroyd making fun of him forever.
Is that true?
And I said, no,
yeah, he did a dead-on Tom Snyder.
Right.
Wow. Dead on would be more apropos now, wouldn't it?
Yes, it is, sadly.
Easier to do, though.
Yeah.
Anyone could do that.
But I'm feeling great.
You don't want to talk about the lawsuit?
No. Well, I will.
Well, I don't want to bum you out because we also need to talk about the fact that your van with your computer in it was towed off Sunset Boulevard.
Yes, moments ago.
Yeah.
And I'm still... And it wasn't until I walked in here that I remembered my fucking laptop was in there.
Brand new.
Oh,
brand new with all the show. John and I are doing a show called Explosion Bus, if I can punch it. And all the scripts, all the audio editing. Of course, it's all backed up, but still, holy shit.
But now it's out there.
It's out there.
I mean, whoever...
Somebody else is going to make the show now.
Let's say
slow down.
Clever...
Slow down, guys.
Okay.
There is a thing called the police and towing companies that you were parked in a handicap spot,
right.
And as Jonathan said, may or may not had the placard on the dashboard.
Could we say publicly it did have it just because it makes it a better story?
You know, it's funny. You're talking with such caution. It's like when my wife says to me, when I ask her if she loves me, she says, well, to the best of my knowledge, I'm in love with you.
Is there a guy who whispers in her ear before she says it?
No, she speaks because she has been involved in a lot of litigation in her life. She just goes into lawyer speak.
No, that's what I meant. She's got her defense attorney whispering in her ear.
Right.
So, all right, let's start off with. Let me do this properly because a lot of times I jump right into an interview because I'm excited to talk to my guests. And so let me start by saying you guys do have a new show. It's online now. You can actually see it now.
Yes.
It's called Explosion Bus. Which
is the worst name in the world for a show, especially in Israel.
See, that's insensitive. There
are other places where buses can blow up.
That's true. We got Northern Ireland.
You're right. And in fact, Egypt, I think, it was an awful accident with a bus.
Yeah.
So that'll make people feel better.
But it's funny.
Thanks for bringing
it
it
is
up.
funny. Explosion Bus, which, by the way, is going to be a sponsor of this show.
Are we?
You are indeed. So here's the way it's going to read. Now, you guys correct me because for the next 4 weeks, I'm going to be reading the verbiage of whoever is your publicist. Mm-hmm. And let me know if I get it right and you can give me notes on it.
Can't wait to hear it.
All right, here we go. Explosion Bus is an animated comedy from the creators of Dr. Katz, Professional Therapist. It's animated, and it's the guys behind that show, which I love, Dr. Katz, Professional Therapist, seminal show in the 1990s that was not only groundbreaking because comics had not yet been depicted with a thing called squiggle vision, which Tom Snyder had developed and has since gone on to have a hugely successful animation career. But it was also one of the first times that comedians had been exploited for almost no money to use their talent on TV.
Not the first time, not even close.
It's also, you know, from what I've seen from the episodes, it's for smart people, but dumb people will find something about it to also like. But for smart people, you're going to like get addicted to it. It's the kind of thing like Curb Your Enthusiasm where you just go like, this is a show for me. I'm not being talked down to. It's dry. And it's also kind of like, it's just a one-man shop because these guys together are lethal. They're a team. They're like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers or Chachi and Joni or
Squiggy and who?
Lenny and Squiggy.
Yeah.
I mean, they're amazing together.
God, Lenny and Squiggy. Which one was Squiggy?
Squiggy had the squiggly black hair on his forehead. Lenny was the tall one.
Was David Lander? Which one was he?
Michael McKeon was I believe, was Lenny, the bigger guy.
And Squiggy is David Lander, who also has MS. And I've often blamed my MS on squiggle vision.
I didn't do that.
No,
I did not.
I take it back.
Yeah, we started.
You know I'm in the middle of a read, right?
Oh, yes, go, please.
Sorry.
Nothing like cheering up a read with an MS reference. So they've done all the writing, recording, animating, and producing in their homes. And because it's on the web, they literally, this is the cool part, you can be on it. They accept auditions from anyone on the internet. I mean, if you have a camera on your computer, you could, by the time I finish this read, you could have auditioned for the show. There's contests where they'll animate the viewer into the episode. So where do you see it? Just watch it at explosionbus.com, and they'll guide you from there on how to get involved. So that's my read. What do you think? Notes?
Take it again. I was going to say, take it again from the top, but this time a little less effeminate. No.
But I was reading, that was like,
oh.
I was actually just reading it the way I read it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I wasn't trying to be effeminate. Jonathan Katz, let me go back and speak to you briefly because I started out doing stand-up comedy in Boston in 1989. And when I came up, there were a lot of killer acts in Boston, guys that it was saloon comedy and guys that came out there with big energy, and they had hardcore material. It was blue, I guess you could say, but
little off
and
color.
It was local, a little off color.
Right.
And then you had you, who, if people don't know you, you're small in stature and bald, and you would go up.
And if you do know me, I'm also small in stature. Okay.
That's the sad part.
Yeah.
I was trying to help you out with the people that know. And Jonathan would go up there in the same rooms, the same tough rooms where the crowds were drunk, you know, guys from Southie, from the Union. And you'd go up there with this really clever, downplayed style and hold the room. Like, it seemed highly unlikely that somebody with that energy could. But your material is so amazing that it would shut people up and make them listen.
Often.
Not always.
Right.
I had seen Providence Comedy Connection. We worked at once.
Oh, right. Periwinkles?
Periwinkles.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you were sitting. Here's how unflappable you were.
I had the bouncer follow me to my car because this woman threatened me.
That's right. And you were so what do you say, ruffled by it? You were sitting in the green room paying your bills between shows.
Oh, with Quicken.
You had a stack of bills, and you were just sitting there with your checkbook, and everybody else is like going over their notes, nervous, drinking, and then you'd go up and do these jokes, like do a joke, do one of your jokes.
You know the expression, you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, now they can make him drink.
See, that kind of stuff, you would think.
Those Japanese. That was the tag. Those Japanese.
Oh, I ruined the tag. Well,
but it's it's a sleeper.
In other words, later on, it sort of...
It's not for everybody.
No. Certainly not for the Japanese.
No. But I remember being on stage at Stitches one night, and I was totally tanking. And I had just gotten a call. I did this joke about having a goose with Down syndrome. And I got a call from a guy... I got a call from.
Wait a minute. When you say you did a joke about it, was that the whole joke?
No, it's the whole farm you had.
Oh yeah, I had a home for troubled animals, and that was the first one. I had a nervous tick. I had a jack of all trades, master of none. But I got a call from a guy in Framingham who said that he was watching me tell that joke on television, and his son has Down syndrome, and I promised I would never tell it again, and for 2 weeks I didn't. But one night I was on stage at Stitches, nothing was working, nothing.
Yeah.
And I think Kylie was a witness to this.
Brian Kiley.
Yeah, because I had to get one laugh. So I said, my grandfather died, and I was with him when he died. His dying words were, "Blow me."
And the thing is, that killed.
They loved it.
They loved it.
Yeah, I wish I could have told it again and again.
Yeah. I looked up to you. I still look up to you quite a bit. I just don't see you as often to look up to you. But you were really a guy who had a huge influence on a lot of comics that were coming up, guys like Bill Broadus and David Cross. You were kind of a guy that showed that in this city that had this really intense male energy, that there were other ways that you could do stand-up. And I think out of... you were one influence, certainly, that led to like a cross comedy, like what would be seen as early alternative comedy at Catch a Rising Star in Cambridge.
Right. Louis C.K. was part of that group.
Mark Maron. And I think it was really amazing because it taught me that comedy is, for me, getting more out of it than what you're putting out as a comic. Taking in huge amounts of laughter, like with Stephen Wright, and putting out, what has to be very just elegant, tightly written stand-up with a persona that belies any nervousness whatsoever. Because if you were to show fear with your type of material,
it's all over.
It would be over.
Yeah, I remember Stephen Wright, watching him, and I think he was a guy who would insist on the audience coming to him.
Yeah.
And in Boston, that was not the way it worked. You had to sell it, and sell it hard. And Don Marrero reminded me of one night at Nick's, where I had to follow Lenny, Don Gavin, Don Marrero, and Kevin Meaney singing "We Are the World." And then I went up, and people were heckling the back of my bald head, and I.
What do you mean, on the way to the stage they were already heckling?
On the way to the stage they were heckling. And I said, I got on stage, people were yelling, "Fuck you, you suck." And I said, "Precisely." And then I just thanked them and said goodnight. But I was afraid to walk through the audience, so I hid on stage in that sound booth at Nick's. Do you remember that place?
Yeah.
Waiting for them to leave.
So you weren't selling CDs?
No.
But then there became this place where guys like you could go in Cambridge, literally in the middle of Harvard Square, where audiences came in that were looking for a different experience, because comedy was, I don't know if you'd say peaking, but on its way to peaking, where you could put a microphone in a Chinese restaurant, and not exaggerating, and crowds would show up on a Tuesday night.
Most Americans were comedians at that time.
Yeah, I read that Gallup poll.
Yeah. What's my joke about the comedy boom? I'm sorry to be recalling a joke, but everybody had quit their regular job.
I'll tell you your joke right now.
Oh, about
there's so many. Hold on.
Okay.
There's a comedy boom, and so many people have become comedians, and it doesn't always work out. You're already seeing the side effects. The other day I was in Macy's, and I said, "Where can I find men's shoes?" And the guy said, "On men's feet, Sparky."
Oh my God!
Is that the joke?
That was amazing. Yeah, I went to the.
Wait, I know the other one. I'll tell you the other one.
The funeral?
Oh no, that's not it.
The funeral. The rabbi said, "I've been to 3 funerals this week, and I'm not a morning person." But what's the other one you remember?
There was another one which was.
Was it the doctor who's?
Oh, yeah. Here it is. I go to the doctor's office. He checks me out. And I said, well, how does it look? And he goes, "What has 2 arms, 2 legs, and cancer of the pancreas?"
Sparky.
Sparky, it's always Sparky, because that's what the big killer acts. Everything was Sparky.
And Belzer, I think, introduced that term into the.
And for 10 years, the name Sparky would elicit an extra 15% at the end of the joke.
It's true.
So you were somebody that I worshipped and watched, and you had a huge effect on people. And what's amazing is that years. I mean, I have to think Dr. Katz probably went off the air in '97.
Actually, 2000. I think 99 maybe.
99.
Yeah.
And that many years later, you talk to people, and I'm sure you know this more than me. It is like it's a show that people will always remember. It was that different, and it hasn't really been accomplished since. That simple kind of animation with, a central character who is just bringing talent through.
Well, that's kind of what the Explosion Bus is. I mean, it's a different scenario. It's Tom, would you like to try and describe the world of the Explosion?
I'd like to hear you try and describe it. I love the way you do it.
Well, it's a show about two pathetic men. I portray one of them who's slightly delusional. They think the other guy is a guy named Tom Leopold. I don't know if you.
Yeah, I know Tom.
Yeah. They think that they are going to put the fictitious version of America's Got Talent out of business, and they're going to do it. They have none of the skills necessary. They don't have the work ethic, but they have a bus, and they hire attractive women who could drive stick shifts.
And what I like is they're sexually harassing the women the entire time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, plus or minus 10%. I mean, some of the women are kind of, they're all sexually curious young women.
That's your minimum requirement to work on the bus.
Right.
Did I hear Laura Silverman's voice back on there? Because she was your receptionist in Dr. Katz.
No,
but
she's not on the bus.
You could any day now, though.
Right.
Yeah, it's like you like that sound, that voice, because it's almost like there was a voice that sounded like that. Kevin Kraft, our engineer, is entering the studio. He's checking on the levels, and he is raising Tom's levels and leaving Jonathan's fine. So, Tom?
They're both boosted.
Both boosted.
Yeah, but that conversational style, it's so incredibly apparent to me, and I think to Jonathan too, even though we have a background script and a background outline, it really is just spoken.
Yeah.
It's not that different than what we're doing right now.
Yeah, and then it's edited after the fact, and that's why we started calling it retroscripting, because we would go in there and mine for the narrative sometimes after the thing happened, because funny things get said and new arcs start emerging, but it's so different from a guy sitting reading a script and saying, "No, you are right, sir,"
Yeah.
As opposed to, I'd say, tell him he's right. That's usually it's written in the third person for John. Mm-hmm. The instruction, because I direct it from a booth, kind of like you are right now, and I say, John, explain to Leo, that he's correct, and John can do it any which way he wants, and he tries it 5 or 6 different ways, and so it's not performance. It's not big. It's just this.
And this is me kind of bragging a little bit. You don't mind?
Please.
But Larry David at one point met with Tom to find out how we get this very naturalistic style, and that, he explained how we work from an outline, and ultimately that became the template for Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Really?
And
just improving a scene and then sort of finding that.
It's not easy to, because you need a narrative.
Yeah.
And certain things have to happen, but you want people to be talking. And John and I went out to improv clubs back in the early 90s because we thought Dr. Katz was going to be all about improv, which it really wasn't. It was more about workshopping. It's a live rehearsal. You're catching everything. And then you can go back and with digital audio editing, which was the big breakthrough for us, so that we could go in and repurpose it really quickly. But we would go to these improv shows and leave halfway through because it was so hard to watch.
Yeah, it's brutal.
I don't know how you put it, John, but...
we would, improv would be great if you could edit out everything but the funny parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we weren't really looking for... people who had a background in improv.
just people that could put their guard down and be loose
And talk.
and then you guys do the heavy lifting then of pulling out the stuff that
Yeah.
you can make a narrative into.
And John and I, like for Explosion Bus, we'll work on an outline together. John will punch it up ahead of time because nobody is better than John.
Oh no, you can see. I mean, there's obvious parts when you watch where you go like, oh yeah, that's Jonathan.
Yeah.
Even though it's the other character saying it, you can tell you wrote it.
And I have to say, for Leo, Tom Leopold, he is extraordinary. He invented a kind of compliment, if I could do it. Say anything to me, a declarative statement.
You wear your shirt button pretty low.
I tell you what doesn't wear its shirt button pretty low is my respect for your talent.
Wait, I want to do another one.
Yeah.
I noticed for a second there that you were confused.
I tell you what's not confused is my respect for your talent.
I love it. How do you not sell TV shows in Hollywood with that?
I know.
approach?
Can you do his gay response to anything?
Yeah, I can make... And it's so simple. It's so fucking simple.
Mm-hmm.
Say anything, and I will make it sound like a homosexual double entendre.
Okay. If you're thirsty, I can go out and grab you a bottle of water. This reminds me of speaking of Jonathan's sort of like fragile demeanor on stage. He would then halfway through his set, in front of the animals that he has just calmed down, open it up by asking them to heckle.
That's right.
Can I do that to you right now?
Please.
And you can. What is? How do you?
I would ask somebody. I started giving out cue cards because I didn't trust what they were going to say. But tell me, my mother wears army boots.
I'll do worse than that.
Okay.
You're bald and you have glasses and you seem gay.
What, are you saying my mother doesn't wear army boots? No, that's not how it works.
That's not the bit.
No. There were three. Okay. But let's do it on script because I really had three specific comebacks.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, now I'm not afraid of being heckled, but
okay.
In those days I was terrified. So if you tell me my mother wears army boots, and then you call me cue ball,
yeah,
and then tell me to go fuck myself.
Okay. Your mother wears army boots.
It so happens that my mother does wear army boots, and she died so that young scum can live freely.
Great, cue ball.
That's very sweet. Maybe you'd like to explain to your friends what you find so comical about chemotherapy. I didn't think so, Mr. Smarty Pants, Mr. Clever Trousers, Mr. Adroit Slacks.
4 Eyes, is that the last one?
No, you can tell me, fuck you.
Hey, fuck you.
Fuck you. And then we all lived happily ever after.
Let's talk briefly about you have come down with a sickness, a disease or a sickness.
Depends on who you ask.
I'm going to go disease.
I think it's a gift.
A gift of
not one, but multiple
sclerosis. And you came down with this guy. You've had it for what, 15 years?
Yeah, 1997. That's very, very close. Yeah.
And I remember at one point, weren't you like doing a speaking tour about it?
I was like a drug whore. I was being paid by a pharmaceutical company to plug their drug.
No shit.
Yeah, and then I stopped doing it because I'm not really a doctor, right?
Yes.
And I felt like people were looking to me for medical advice, but the best part of that gig, and you would appreciate this, is I followed 2 neurologists. That's like every comedian's dream come true.
They'd get up and speak and do all the cold, boring stuff, and then you'd go up and kill.
Yep.
So was the deal you would get the drugs for free?
I would get... No, they would pay me.
And give you drugs?
No, I think.
Were you even taking the drug?
I wasn't necessarily taking that particular drug.
You heard it here.
Great endorsement.
I mean, in fact, that would drive the company nuts that was paying me because I was on CNN, and there are 2 publicists standing behind the anchor, and they're holding up the name of the drug, and I would be saying things like, and there are many routes you can take in dealing with this illness.
Homeopathy is...
Right.
So then, what was your health insurance status through all of this?
Great.
You had coverage.
I have great health insurance, and I think that's why women find me attractive.
It is. I'm not even gay, but I just feel like I want to be I want to copay.
I'm like a friend with benefits.
That's right. And did
I
Mitt
can't believe I said
Romney,
that.
was it because of Mitt Romney that you had good coverage in Massachusetts?
Yes. Yes, it was, yeah.
Isn't that funny?
He invented Obamacare.
Isn't that amazing?
Yep,
and
it
he
is.
tried to run from it for the entire...
I know.
Except right at the end, then he turned around. He
Yeah.
started taking credit for it again.
Well, he must have been dizzy by the end of that run.
Yeah.
He was turning around a lot.
Yeah.
On my block in Newton, there's a couple that lives across the street. White people. Nothing wrong with that. And he's a neurologist, and his wife is in real estate. They have a son, and they had Romney signs in their yard, and I just can't believe that anyone who believes in science can vote for Romney.
Yeah,
Wow.
or anybody that believes in science would put a sign out in front of their house. Like, has there been a study that ever showed
are
a
the
sign
odds?
changed anybody's life in the history of anything? That to me is such a sign of stupidity. How does an intelligent person, even the bumper stickers, you've got a Prius, I get that you're going to vote for Obama. It's
Redundant.
It's redundant. And so I've become very anti-sign, and I'm actually, I don't wear brands on anything. I refuse to advertise for any other, even my watch. I scratched out the brand name of my watch.
What's that say on your jacket?
This is not a brand. Lucky Louie, I wrote on Louis C.K.'s show on HBO.
Got it.
So that's not, I'm trying to get it brought back, but he doesn't want to.
Did I see you on the FX version of Louis?
No, I've not
Was
been
it
on that.
Greg Fitzsimmons type?
It was a type, and the weird thing is they called me for references, and that hurt.
You know, I maybe you've heard me talk about this, but I was coming through the LAX for the first time, and I heard over the PA system Tom Cruise or a Tom Cruise type to the courtesy phone. I think you pretty much have heard everything I've ever said.
No, but here's the favorite thing. Here's my favorite thing you ever said. Is I saw you. I can't remember what it was. Maybe New York, and it was years after. You know, we'd worked together in Boston a handful of times, and I understand now that I'm a headliner. I don't remember a lot of the people that opened for me, just because you're just moving town to town and whatever. So you said to me when you saw me in New York, you went, "I cannot remember your name, but I remember that I like you." And that was the most straightforward, sincere
so
thing
honest
I'd ever
of
heard.
me.
You didn't do the fake, like, "Hey, how you doing?" You just like very sincerely said, "But I like you."
Because what I usually say is, if to somebody, if I don't remember that last time I saw you, we were both wearing name tags. What did yours say? But yeah, I do remember really enjoying your comedy.
Thank you. Thank you. I wasn't fishing for a compliment there, but thank you for that.
Does that bring up the uncomfortable subject of Dr. Katz?
Yeah, let's get into that. Now,
Okay.
you were nice enough, Jonathan, or you clearly did like my comedy enough to invite me to go in the booth, and with no guarantees. I think you said,
Right.
"Why don't you come in and record some stuff for Dr. Katz, and if it's good, we'll make an episode out of it." And so I came in, and I'd only been doing comedy probably 4 years, 5 years, and I really didn't consider myself to be any good for 10 years. And so, through no fault of yours, it did not turn into an episode.
Do you remember any of the material you did?
Yeah, I did a thing about I went to a couples counselor, and then at the end of the session, the counselor said, "Greg, well, first of all, I think you have an Oedipus complex." And I said, "Come on, Ma, let's get the hell out of here." And my dad's pissed; he won't pay for it. I want to kill him. A lot of very jokes that were a little too written. And then I look back at the show, and it actually, there were like jokey jokes, but for the most part, like any show, you're looking for a character and a voice and a point of view, which I did not have. I like to write jokes.
A lot of the early days of Dr. Katz, I just took my role much too literally. You
made people sad.
I made 2 women cry, comedians, and I made one guy feel better because I actually thought I was their therapist.
Oh, you draw them out.
Yeah, I thought I would draw them out, but that unfortunately, it brought them down to my energy level, and nobody would broadcast that.
I see.
So then, beginning with Ray Romano, we encourage people to do their material.
Yeah, I remember his.
And the only one I would improvise with was just because I knew him so well was Dom.
Tom Herrera.
Yeah.
Yeah. He did a couple, didn't he?
Yeah, he did a few. He and Ray were the most frequent appearers on that show.
Yeah. And Louis did at least a couple, right?
Yeah, Louis was great.
So, of those people, now just to go back to Boston for a minute. No, wait. I want to finish up talking about your sickness. So you've obviously dealt with MS pretty well because you did all this touring and you're active with this new show.
Right.
And then do you still go out and do stand up much?
Rarely.
Yeah.
Wendy Liebman comes to town once in a while, and I'll work with her. I did a show with John Benjamin recently.
Mm-hmm.
I like to be in front of a live audience, but it's not always in the cards.
Yeah. So, what is your whole regimen with the MS? There's drugs?
I can tell you specifically. First, I put my two knees way up tight, move them to the left, move them to the right. No, the main thing I do is I stretch every day in a very yoga-like way.
Yeah.
I see a physical therapist once a week. Very talented PT who's become a very good friend.
Well, the Asian women are really good at physical therapy, I find.
Take a number. I don't know what that means. And then I give myself an injection every night, and it's not fun, but it's not that bad. And once a month I have an infusion of something called Solumedrol, which is steroids. So I'm like a comedian on steroids.
Yeah.
Except I'm groggy.
Is that called chemo? I mean, chemotherapy?
Technically it is, yeah. But,
monthly?
Monthly, just once a month, 4 hours.
And you feel it for a couple days after that?
Oh, I feel it for a month.
Really?
I mean, like when I'm due for a new one, it's kind of like getting a license to kill.
But it's a good feeling.
Yeah.
Unlike chemo.
Oh, I see.
No, it energizes me.
Yeah, I see. So that's when you run in, Tom, and say it's time for us to write some stuff?
Well, because we bring our cast in about once a month, and we have to time it, or, it's good to time it.
Yeah, we record my home in Newton, 8 different actors in 8 different isolated rooms.
Really?
Yeah.
Because that's the way it's always done, with a director in the center, and then we have a little audience listening so that the comedians can hear the audience so that they can tell if they're killing or not.
That's so comedy friendly for
them.
Yeah.
And then, but you want everybody isolated so they don't, because everyone accidentally steps on each other.
Yes.
But then I've got all 8 tracks isolated. If John says something to Leo that someone else asked a question or something, I got it clean.
Yep.
And then you go back in there and you mine for all this. It's the greatest fun. It's what I started doing with John in '93, I think, when we first met.
Right.
And I feel so lucky to still be doing it today. And it's a great gig for you, John, because you can stay in your pajamas almost.
Right.
You know what's the best is, though, listening to my podcast with the sound off. A lot of people find that for them, they enjoy me more. Just not off completely, but so you just barely hear a hum.
Do you ever feel like you were doing background comedy when you were doing stand-up?
Yes.
I remember I used to book a room in outside of New Haven, and there's a comedian named George Kalfa who's wonderful, but he didn't have the audience's attention. They didn't hear him being introduced. They didn't acknowledge that he was on stage, so he just put on his headphones and listened to the game and did his act. But he was just doing it from memory.
That's amazing. Yeah, I worked with Paul Kozlowski once during, it was the Boston Red Sox were in the American League playoffs, and we were up at a bar in New Hampshire. It's like a Bellricken 99 where it's a sports bar, and the bar is in the center of the room, and the people are sort of surrounding the bar, and then they put the stage in one corner with a TV behind the stage showing the baseball game. So we're doing the stand-up show, and people are getting mad that you're in the way of the screen. Yeah. So Paul got the remote control for the TV, and he said, fine, let's just watch the game. I'm getting paid either way. So he's got the volume up, and he's standing next to it, and he's kind of doing play-by-play, which is kind of funny. People are laughing. Right. But he hated them so much that every time the Red Sox would get a hit, once the ball was in the air, he would turn the power off and pretend that the TV had gone and just to torture them until they all left.
I worked at a place in New Britain, Connecticut, a one-nighter called the Sky Top Lounge. and it was above a bowling alley, and I was sharing the same PA system as the bowling alley. So I would say, my wife came home on lane number 30. But it was.
And they scored you on your stand-up set?
Yeah. You know who really scored me was my father-in-law. He would actually rate my jokes. He would check them off and give them a score. This is in West Stockbridge. I was doing a set, and he didn't really find me that amusing, even though I was about to marry his daughter. And then Bob Seibel came up and did 45 minutes of fart jokes, and he was hysterical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bob Seibel, who on a cruise ship met a woman, and she came to see his show, and then he shit his pants on stage during his set, and still went out with her that night because he was so excited about the woman.
You got to admire that.
You do.
That's commitment.
Yeah.
It's commitment to the date.
Greg, what part of Massachusetts did you live
I'm
in?
from New York, but I lived in Alston. I went to Boston University. That's why I started doing comedy
what part
there.
of New York?
Tarrytown, Westchester County.
I performed with my band in Tarrytown.
You did?
Yeah.
Wow. What was the name of the band?
Katz and Jammers.
Jazz?
Worse.
I call it mediocre. That's the kind of...
No, say the actual genre, John.
Easy listening, but
No.
not that easy.
The actual genre, well, folk, right? That's how you told me.
I guess it was folk. Yeah.
Is it you played clarinet?
I played guitar, and I was the lead singer.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom had a band that actually had a record deal with Capitol, but
what's the closest that anybody in your band ever got to a groupie or actually translating the performance into sexual intercourse with a woman?
I married my groupie. Oh, that's a bad name for a movie.
I married my groupie.
Is that the Confederate flag?
Did you? No, that's Australia. Did you literally... She met you while you were performing music?
Well, that was part of the seduction. I mean, we were already living together, but she had a Honda station wagon, which would help me move my equipment from gig to gig. But she was a big fan of Katz and Jammers.
Before she knew you, was she a fan, or she became
nobody was.
No, that's really a fan. They're not begging for a reunion tour?
No.
God, what a waste! What a waste that is. Can we make a documentary about what happened to the Katzenbergers?
Katz and Jammers.
See, already.
Yeah.
I forget.
What happened to the name?
I've only been aware of you for 9 seconds, and I already...
No, it's not a bad idea. I think we'd need a budget.
Mm-hmm.
A really good documentary filmmaker.
Mm-hmm. Well, why do you keep looking at Tom?
And my availability, which is limitless.
Yeah, well, let's not do it. It's even beyond where are they now, because they never were. Well,
where were they then? What the hell were they thinking?
Yeah.
What were they thinking? That's a good series for VH1.
Yeah.
Bands that were so bad, you go back and ask them, what were you thinking?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Or comedians.
I never made anybody dance.
No? No.
I made them talk when I would sing. They would talk.
Uh-huh.
When I started talking, they would sing.
You were used for crowd control?
Yeah.
You sold your company. You had an animation company you sold.
I did. Yeah.
Just a lot? Did you get a lot of money?
I did.
Tom sold Tom Snyder Productions twice. Once to Tour Star and once to Scholastic.
Yeah, it was just a great deal.
How do you? Oh, because you retained some ownership, so then you sold
You bought it back, didn't you?
No, I didn't buy it back, but
So you don't need to do Explosion Bus.
I do need to do it
Creatively, but financially you don't.
I'm paying for Explosion Bus right now because we haven't turned on advertising because, well, maybe the business model is different for you guys, but you need an awful lot of viewers out there to make, animation money.
Yeah, I'm
to
sure.
pay animators
and you're on the serious payroll.
I am. Well, the podcast is all me. It's my advertising pays for it, and my staff.
Right.
And then the Sirius show that I do is I get paid by Sirius XM, and then they do their ads, and they keep that money.
Well, I'll tell you, we got a lot of young kids in their 20s working for me who are, love the internet and stuff. And they said, it's time that we advertise on someone's podcast. And
that's great.
And then they said, yours.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, really.
Oh, that's
they
great.
said, if we could do Fitzsimmons, that'd be perfect.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go whole hog on promoting it because, number one, I knew I'd love it because it was you, and I was excited to bring you in. Number two, I watched it, and I just thought, again, it's like this. There's certain things that you see, for me personally, and I would assume my listeners by extension have a similar taste as me, and you just go, there needs to be more of these. Like I'm psyched to hear that there's more in the tunnel.
Going forward and backward.
Yeah. So I'm going to highly recommend it. And again, explosionbus.com to check out the episodes. Jonathan Katz, follow him at Jonathan Katz, Jonathan_Katz. Smart. And
Wait, what are you talking about here?
To get to your website.
Oh,
yes.
I think it's just JonathanKatz.com. But
it says here _. I'm going to type it in right now and see what comes up.
Okay.
That is really sad that you don't know.
It's JonathanKatz.com. Otherwise, it's
Jonathan_Katz. You are... I don't know because I'm not online.
No, it's JonathanKatz.com.
It
is
is
my site. But
okay, and
also follow me on Twitter if you.
No, that's the Twitter address at Jonathan_Katz. And then your website is JonathanKatz.com.
Right, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I sit corrected.
And Tom Snyder, you can just go soup2nuts.com.
No, don't even do that. Just Explosion Bus.
Okay, just go to explosionbus.com.
I sold Soup to Nuts. That's my other one.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't want anyone going there. You want to implode the business that you started.
Well, they're doing pretty good.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
Well, someday we're going to do an animated version of the podcast.
And Greg, I'm not saying that my life is perfect, but I'm doing so well that I pay a guy to come in once a week just to count my blessings.
That's amazing. And Thanksgiving is coming up. Didn't you have a meal with your parents and you had a classic Freudian slip at one point?
I did, but you know what? I'm not doing Thanksgiving anymore. I'm going cold turkey.
Oh, the Freudian slip.
Oh yeah, I did. I had dinner with my dad, and I made this is, of course, when he was alive. And I made a classic Freudian slip. I meant to say, "Can you pass me the salt, please?" But it comes out, "You prick! You ruined my childhood."
My favorite Jonathan Katz joke.
Me too.
What better way to go out? Gentlemen, thank you for sharing your time with me.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, that was fun.
So
Really
happy to
fun.
see you again, and that we could hash out what happened to my episode of Dr. Katz. I feel assuaged. I feel content.
Work it out with Groff. I think
He took
he's
me
opening
down.
for you.
He took me
in
down.
that episode.
I want to thank Jonathan and Tom once again for coming in. Support their show. Support the podcast. You just check it out. It's free. Go to explosionbus.com and watch a couple of episodes. I think you're going to like it. And also don't forget, go to fitzdog.com and click through to the Amazon link to buy your stuff for this holiday season. Thank you all, and thanks for the people that make the show possible. Ileana Horechko, Kevin Kraft, and until next time, God bless America.